on day 2 of the United Soccer Coaches Convention is a guy who is a member of the United States Soccer Hall of Fame, a guy who started his career calling MISL games. You've heard him call 16 World Cups along with 3 Olympics. He's also one of the commissioners of the MASL, and the last 13 years, the voice of your Philadelphia Union, JP Dellacamera. JP, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Billy, as always, your second time I'm going to talk to JP. A little bit jealous, so.
Yeah. JP and I are good friends now.
Billy's a veteran of this.
Yeah, he is. So, I mean, what questions can I ask JP that Billy hasn't? We're going to try, but...
He asked me a bunch. I even read to his son.
Yes.
That was a great moment, by the way. That was, like, amazing.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's so unique.
JP thinking on his toes,
seriously,
too.
Amazing. That's the only kid's book I had in the house.
Yeah. It works out. But anyway, anytime I have a new guest come onto the podcast, I always ask, how did they get into soccer? And like I mentioned, you started calling MISL soccer games in the 80s.
Yeah.
So why indoor soccer?
I grew up in Boston. Flyers fans will appreciate that I was a Boston Bruins fan, growing up. That was the sport. Like, Boston Bruins sold out every game, televised every game, including games on the West Coast. So I actually had a dream of being an NHL broadcaster. And I was in the minor leagues for like 10 years. Had a couple of opportunities to make it to an NHL team. Never happened for me. And there was a team down the road 2 hours away in Pittsburgh, indoor soccer. And I thought, it's like hockey on grass, right? I could do this. And I thought, it'll get me off the minor league hockey buses and get me into a major market like Pittsburgh was. Major television station, major radio station, airplanes instead of the buses, nice market. And so I took it. And then eventually indoor soccer led to outdoor soccer led to World Cups. So, I mean, I'm giving you like the shorter version of it, but that's really how it started. And to fast forward it, gave up my NHL dreams. One day I got a call from a friend of mine, asked me if I'd fill in for somebody on an Atlanta Thrashers, I think it was 4 or 5 games that I did. I filled in. 2 years later, that guy leaves, they call me, and I got my NHL job. So, when I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah.
I spent 10 years looking for it, I couldn't get it,
And then out of nowhere, here it is.
That's why I say, if you're looking for something, if you have a dream, if you can stay with it, stay with it. If it's meant to be, it might come your way.
For sure, absolutely. And I grew up listening to my dad tell all these stories about indoor soccer back in the 80s, where he had players like Steve Jungle, the Lord of all indoors, Branko Sagoda, Tatu, Stan Stankovic, the Magician, Shep Messing. Can you see MASL returning to the glory days of the MISL?
I'd love to say, in my role as President of Communications and Media, that yes, we'll see that, but no, we can't see that because back then we were not competing with much, right? You can't compete with MLS. I mean, MLS is too strong of a league. I mean, they're number one. Outdoor soccer is number one in this country, there's no question, right? But there's a spot for us, there's a niche for us. We want to be more successful, let's say, than arena football. And with the NFL, that doesn't mean there's no arena football, right? I mean, there's different forms of the game. So I think we're at a point now where we've been saying we'd like to get 30% better each year with everything that we do, whether it's selling tickets, streaming, being on radio, advertising, sponsor, whatever it is, get 30% better each year. And we'll be at a level that I think in this country, indoor soccer can be successful in 10,000 or less seat stadiums. I think the ideal stadium for us is 7,000 to 8,000 probably. I think if we can get to a point where we can fill a 7,000 to 8,000 seat stadium, that's a high ceiling, but that's a success.
Absolutely, and I believe you guys are at 14 teams now. Any chance of potentially the Philadelphia Kixx coming back into the mix?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I think I'd love to see something in the Philadelphia market. And by Philadelphia market, it doesn't have to be in Philadelphia itself because you need the right building, right, and the right ownership group. But I'd take Allentown, right? They've got a nice building there. I'd take Hershey, Pennsylvania. I mean, we need this market. This market would be good too with Baltimore, down the road, Harrisburg, the other direction. So I would love to see it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up Baltimore, so I'm from Maryland. Obviously, the Baltimore Blast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They play at CQ Arena, Towson. Is that a good spot for you? Because I hear fans say, the stadium's too small, the field's too small.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of negatives about that, but it seems like it's a pretty good location for people to get to.
Well, they draw pretty well, right? They've had a couple of sellouts. The capacity is low. It's like 3,000, I think it is. But you know what? I'll take a 3,000-seat building that's full rather than an 8,000-seat building that has 1,500 in it, right? So it's working for Baltimore. I would rather see them play at a bigger venue, personally. I would rather see them play on a bigger carpet, personally.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. But they are one of the most successful franchises in indoor soccer history. I mean, all the titles that they've won. When they used to play at the Baltimore Arena, they packed it. The atmosphere there was fantastic. And now I think the arena's redone, right? It's refurbished, I'm pretty sure. So I have no idea what the dynamics are there, though. If it could ever, go back, I have no idea. But I do know that Baltimore is one of our most stable, most successful franchises, and probably the longest running in indoor soccer. They and the Milwaukee Wave, I think it would be the two that have lasted the longest and had the most success.
Yeah, for sure. Ed Hale's done a fantastic job with the franchise,
Yes,
and just so many champions for that franchise. You, Keith Tozier, and Shep Messing all took over as commissioners as MASL a few years ago, and I remember listening to an interview you gave where you said you want to make indoor soccer a supporters culture like it is in Major League Soccer. Do you feel like the supporters culture is growing, or is that still a work in progress?
I think it's a work in progress. I don't think it's something that, we can't do it as a league, but, we have some teams that are close together. So I would like to see our teams, like we have Mesquite and Dallas that are so close, you don't even need a bus to get there, right? You can just take cars. But, like a St. Louis, Kansas City, San Diego, and our team in California, Empire Strikers. I think now that you bring it up, though, I think we should initiate that more. I think we should do that as a league, encourage that. If they haven't thought of that on their own, let us think about that and say, hey, why don't we do this? Why can't we do this? Because I think supporters that travel make a huge difference. I've seen it in Major League Soccer. I've seen games where Philadelphia Union has gone into Red Bull Arena and it sounds like it's at Subaru Park. That's how many Philadelphia fans are there. And anybody that thinks the players don't hear that is mistaken. They hear it, they see it, they acknowledge it, and those fans have helped them. So I think we need that, yeah.
As the league grows, do you think there's any space for cooperation or even partnership with MLS, whether that's in advertising or even potential ownership groups reaching out and starting their own teams?
I think ownership groups would be more likely, but I think the key for us is partnering up with NHL and NBA people, because those are the buildings that, they're in good buildings, right? Those are the buildings that we want. An MLS team, the arrangement would be more financial, more business-like, I would say. But I always believe this too, You used to be able to play indoors part of the time, outdoors part of the time, but the seasons now are so long that it's hard to do it, right? Like if you're playing indoor and you want to play even in USL, right? You've got to leave early, right? MLS would never have one of our indoor players because they would never allow them to be indoors when their preseason starts, right? So, and we don't want a player that's going to play for just 1 month and then he goes to MLS, right? But I think there's ways, if you have a young kid on your team, like in the academy, and now you're in like December and January, why not see if you can do something with an indoor team, right? Because I think if I wanted to train an outdoor player to be as good as he can possibly be, I would want to have some indoor training, right? Because you can't, in most places, you can't train for 12 months outdoors. And, you're looking at a smaller goal indoors, the boards, right? Tighter marking, right? I mean, you can give a guy space in the outdoor game. In the indoor game, you give him space, it's probably going to be a goal, right? Yep. So I think there's a lot of things you can learn from the indoor game that can translate to the outdoor game.
You mentioned having the players difficulties in schedules between training or playing in both. But what do you think about player movement from league to league? Guys that maybe don't make it in MLS coming to play there, or even guys that are doing very well in your league and maybe getting chances with USL or MLS.
We've had players that have, been in MLS and now they're with us, and vice versa. Adrian Perez is the latest guy that I could think of that did that. Played with our team when it was called Ontario. Then he went LAFC, DC United, then he gets hurt. Now he's back with the team that is still in Ontario, but under a different name, Empire. But I think that as this league grows and as we spend more money on players, one of my goals is to get MLS guys that are going to retire.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to retire because they can't make as much money as they could before. Maybe younger guys are squeezing them out. Maybe they're too, I don't want to say old, but too experienced. No, I am going to say old. Maybe they're too old to play like a 34-game schedule or an 8-month season.
Yeah.
But why not play 3 months and change on the fly, or 4 months, our season? I would love to have been able to go after like a Chris Wondolowski and say to him when he said, he's done, I got a great idea for you. But I mean, you got to pay for these guys, right? But I do think like a Bradley Wright Phillips, right? I mean, he's still good enough to play, but he was being squeezed out because he's getting older. Mm-hmm. He's had some injuries, right? And if you're looking at your MLS salary cap, how much can you pay him, right? And at some point, Bradley Wright Phillips has probably made enough money where he would say, you know what, I'm not gonna play for that. But would he play for a team close to New York in a 4-month season? You know what I mean? Where he could still play the game and enjoy it, and maybe his kids could watch him play. Those are guys that I think as this league gets older and better, MASL, that we can get some of those players.
I feel like El Senior would have been the perfect player for indoor soccer.
I was thinking of him when I was looking at Billy, and I was thinking, El Senior's the guy I was thinking about because he was at a point in his career, right, where he was, 35 maybe? And body's breaking down a little bit, right? How much money can you pay him when you have to pay all these other guys?
Yeah.
But how about indoors? Changing on the fly? Free kicks?
Yeah.
I'll take them.
Yeah.
I'll take them.
Yeah,
and there's other guys like that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and as the league gets a bit bigger and you are able to bring those guys in, that's also more promotion opportunities.
Yeah.
You bring in some fans, you know, big El Seno fans may come to see him play indoors and just increasing the league.
You guys probably remember Landon Donovan played a few games with the San Diego Sockers, and so did Jermaine Jones, not with San Diego, but he played for that team that was in Ontario. And the awareness that they gave our league was incredible.
Yeah.
That's one. Landon's investment, the team's investment in Landon more than paid for the big contract that he had, right? Because they sold more tickets, they sold more jerseys.
Yep.
The exposure they got was amazing. And so I think that's the way it would work. You know, if you get one of those guys, but it's hard, right? Yeah. Landon was a magical name. And the fact that he's living in San Diego, there's a team in San Diego, right? Everything has to check the boxes. There's not many Landon Donovans out there, right? They could do that. But there are players, MLS players, that people would know that somebody would say, well, why is he getting out? He's only 35. Well, nobody wanted to pay him, you know, that kind of money, and he decided to do something else, whether it was going to broadcasting, going to business, go back to school, whatever that is. You know, we'd like to keep them playing.
And Ali Bedoya in a Philly market.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know what Ali's going to do, by the way, because I think Ali would be a terrific coach, assistant coach.
I think he mentioned front
coach.
Office, right?
Yeah, he could be a GM.
Yeah,
he could be a broadcaster. He could be anything. I said that about. This is funny too, because I think I can compare these guys a little bit. When Jesse Marsh was leaving his playing career, I said to Jesse one day, I have no idea what you're going to be. I said, but I do think you would be very successful as a head coach, a GM, or a broadcaster. And I maintain right now he could do all three. I think he'd be a terrific broadcaster. And I think Ali would too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have no idea. I know Ali's into some business stuff too, right? So I don't know what his future is, but I think he's a well-educated guy as well.
Yeah.
Great guy, by the way, for those that don't know him. Terrific leader. Defines the role of captain. You know, 100%. when I see the letter C in quotes, he's the guy I think of.
Absolutely. Well, JP, it's been a blast having you on the podcast. Unfortunately, we all know that the Apple deal with MLS, no more local broadcasters, but we hope that we can still hear from you down the road, and all the best in the future, JP.
There will always be a soft spot in my heart for Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Union. So I might be away, but I'm not really away, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Absolutely.